Hello and welcome to another edition of Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is a feature of the channel where you guys leave lots of comments on the channel and I attempt to answer those comments, or if I can't answer those comments, I throw it out to you guys who have more knowledge on some of this stuff than I do. So let's get into the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. This comment question comes from Carleen Lemon. In response to Korg Nautilus, People Keep Special Editions, Korg Kronos VST, a mailbag I did in November 2024. And Carleen writes, I love the idea of having an option to preload everything if I'm on stage, as the current Kronos does, or the ability to switch patches seamlessly is what I see. Now, it's not all the ability, but they've written all the ability, but it's the ability to switch patches seamlessly is a huge asset. I'm just hoping they provide a full-featured Kronos where we can import our samples and patches to move our rigs into the software environment. Reprogramming all my sounds would likely be a deal breaker for me, as it would take me over a year of steady work. Now, this is an interesting question because as a performer, having all your tones preloaded and available is, I suppose, a must. Now, I'm not a performer. I don't care if it takes my Kronos X number of seconds to load something up when in between me doing something. But if you're on stage and you want to move seamlessly from patch 1 to patch 2, song 1 to song 2, etc., then having that ability is kind of clearly a must. And all the big workstations are kind of moving in that direction. Well, I say kind of, they're there, aren't they? I mean, let's be brutally honest. And I think this is one of the key uptakes of the Kronos, is that fact that you could be playing one song, kick your foot switch, move the patch, and the next note you press is the next patch. And that was, at the time the Kronos came out, a massive coup for Korg. I'm struggling to think whether I don't think the other keyboards could do it as seamlessly as what the Kronos could do. And it was literally just a follow-on from what the Oasis could do. And it was still to do with how they structured the real-time Linux kernel that's inside this thing. But as I said, in the studio, it's not so important. And it would be good to have a switch where you could switch it on or off. And at the time I said, increase the boot time. Now, I recorded this pre-NAMM 2025. Sorry, I wrote this pre-NAMM 2025. I recorded this post-NAMM 2025. And we know Kronos 3 has been launched. Kronos 3 has new guts, new motherboard, new other bits and bobs inside, and the boot time has come down from about 2 minutes 50 to 48 seconds. So there have been improvements. They have tinkered with the kernel, and they've tinkered with more performant hardware, and they've got it down to 48 seconds. And everybody's bouncing around saying this is brilliant, and it is brilliant. If you're a gigging musician, it's brilliant, and there are compelling reasons why you might want to go and get a Kronos 3, but that is the subject of something else. Next comment question comes from Raver Operator, and this is in response to a video I did called First Look at the AKAI S6000 after purchase. A video I did in August 2016. And while I've been using the S6000, I really haven't done any more videos on it, which is bad, John. Like that. Ouch. And Raver Operators, thanks for the insight. I first saw this unit today on Stephen McLeod's channel. All my friends are since. and I didn't realise the handheld device he actually had was the rack mountable unit. Appreciate your sharing your knowledge on this for me to understand somewhat better. Well, you know, thanks for the feedback. I always appreciate feedback, good or bad. You know the channel rules. Yeah, the control panel is a link back to the sampler, which, you know, the sampler is, if you look inside it, effectively a PC, a rather specialised PC, but it is a sampler. And Roland did something similar with their samplers as well, which was the control unit. But in the Roland case, you had to buy the control unit separately. So in AKAI's case, you bought the unit, the S6000. So to be clear, the S6000 and the S5000 are effectively the same unit. You know, a lot of the internal comparts are cross-compatible. The software that runs it is cross-compatible. The key difference between the two units is the S6000 had that removable control panel that you could go and put on your desk while the unit sat in the rack, whereas the S5000, you had to do all your fiddling and gubbins in the unit, which was in the rack. So, you know, you kind of needed it up at this level if you're in a studio. Whereas in my studio, my S6000 is right down there. Okay, because I don't need to get to it. I can just run the cable round the room, which is what I will eventually do. I've got a long cable. The long cable is actually in storage. It's not here. I've got a short cable connecting it at the moment, which is about that long. It's just long enough to come out of there into there, so you can pull the unit forward and screw it in. But Roland, as I say, Roland did the same thing, and on the front of their machine, yeah, sorry, you can't see this because it's off camera, but there's kind of a, for those of you familiar with it, the port looks like a joystick port from an Atari style joystick, or an 8-bit micro joystick if you've had a Commodore 64 or a ZX Spectrum or any of the other 8-bit micros from the era. In fact, probably an Amiga or an Atari ST had the similar port. It looks like an RS-232 style interface, and you plug one of those cables in, and then you effectively run that around the room to the optional controller, which was an optional extra that you had to buy. I've got one. Of course I've got one. But that was the difference between the two. They both came out about the same point in time. The S5000, S750 and the S770 with the Roland equivalents. And, you know, to be honest, you know, I kind of have to judge what I'm doing. I've got a number of projects on the go. I've got a number of things I want to do in terms of videos, and there's just not enough hours in the day at the moment with the other thing, which is the job that pays for all this.